Okay, today we're going to learn how easy it is to make bread. And I don't need a lot of things to do this with. But I'm going to do it two ways. First of all, I use flour, and I'm just using my standard Walmart unbleached flour, but regular would work. I need some salt. I use iodized because iodine is supposed to be good for your system. You're going to use some yeast. Okay, so this or an envelope would be fine for yeast. And I also use parchment paper. That gives it a nice brown underside to it, and it eases for cleanup. Okay, now I use the scales for my flour, but you may not have a scales, so we're going to measure it out to see how much flour I actually use with a 1 cup measuring cup. Okay, so we're going to give it a shot, but we're going to end up someplace around 10 or 12 ounces of flour. That's our goal, is to end up around 10 or 12 ounces of flour. And then we're going to be using some hot water. So I just have a measuring cup here, although I don't really measure it. I have a general idea how much water it's going to take, but I'll show you as we go on that. Okay, so first of all, let's start with measuring getting our scales set up. Okay, and we'll turn that on. It should go to 0. And we'll put in our flour. Okay, so there we are at 1 cup. It looks like about 2 heavy cups, and that's just right. That gets us right to 11.3 ounces. 10 or 12 was our goal, so that'll be just right. Okay. Next, we're going to measure in our yeast. And this is 1 teaspoon, and I don't want a heaping teaspoon, just maybe around a level teaspoon, and I'll sprinkle that on across the top to help spread it out a little bit. Then we're going to use our salt. We're going to use about a teaspoon of salt, maybe a little less, level teaspoon, maybe a little less, and that's about what that is. Okay, spread that across there. Now I'm going to take a whisk and get rid of the scales because I'm done with the scales. I'm going to take a whisk and kind of mix those ingredients up, as well as it adds air into the flour, so when I get to kneading it, it'll be a little easier to knead. Alright, and just like that. Okay, so you're not doing it for a certain time or anything like that, just so that the ingredients are fairly mixed up. Alright, we're done with the whisk. Now the next thing is I want to use hot water, and that's the most important aspect is to blend the flour with the water. So temperature isn't real critical to me. I just want it as hot as mine goes because I have my water heater turned down. So you just want it, not so hot that you can't hold your hand underneath of it, but pretty hot. I'm going to start off with, that's about 1 cup there, and I'm probably not going to use it all, but I'm going to decide how much to use as I go along. I'm going to put some in. Okay, there I put in 2/3 of it probably, and now I'm going to blend this together. Alright, now it doesn't just blend together, you kind of got to mash the water out of the flour to get it into the rest of it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Remember, we don't care how much water we use because we're not concerned with that. We're concerned with the consistency that we end up with. So you can see it starting to come together a little bit there. And now I'm going to go ahead and shake it to the middle a little bit and add some more water. All right, and you see I've got almost all of it gone there. All right, now you see it really coming together. And this is what you want. Okay, I'm going to unstick it from the sides with the fork, and you can see I'm just using a regular silverware fork. It's a sturdy one, so it's not a soft metal one. It's a sturdy metal one. All right, you see it coming together there. That's just about right. You can see that almost everything is stuck into the few big balls that I have in there. Okay, and that's the whole key. You can see that we have the little flour balls in the bottom are struggling not to stick to the big ball. And that's when we know we have just enough. Okay, so we've got just exactly the right amount of moisture in there. Now this is sticky, right? And we really can't knead it together because it's just going to make our hands a mess. So what we're going to do is I got the flour over here, and I'm going to take some flour, a pinch of flour too, and I'm going to cover the bottom of the bowl. I'm going to do the kneading right in the bowl. Okay? So that makes it so my hand won't stick to it, and it won't stick to the edge either. Now I'm just going to start kneading it, pushing with my flat of my hand, kneading it, and see it's sticking to my hand just a little bit, but just barely, right? So that means that I don't have too much flour. I can actually add a little more, because what I'm looking for is it not to stick much at all to my hand. And that way I know I have my consistency right. And see, I'm pushing it in. See how it picks up that extra flour off the side of the bowl very, very quickly. You can see it picks it up right off the side of the bowl very, very quickly. Now you can see my hand is not really picking up the stickiness anymore. That means my moisture level is just about right. So I want to do this for about 5 minutes or so, maybe less. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it to stick together. Okay, stick together, and so that the warm water activates the yeast. I'm doing it long enough so the warm water activates the yeast, and so as the yeast is growing, I'm actually spreading that newly grown yeast around inside this ball. And I'm just pushing down with it with my hand. That's all I'm doing. You see, it's not even sticking to the bowl anymore. So that means I've got my moisture content with my flour just right. Okay, so I just keep folding it over. Okay, now I got it right about the first time on this one, but that doesn't happen very often. A lot of times what I'll have to do is I'll have to add in more flour just to keep soaking it up. So sometimes it takes longer just because it's harder to target your right amount of moisture into your flour. So sometimes you have to knead it longer just because you keep adding dough or adding flour to it to get the dough right. This time I got lucky. Okay, and you see how it's really starting to smooth out the dough. You see it's smoothing out there. Okay, so that means the yeast is growing just fine in it. And we're almost done with step 1. Okay. Now in this one we're going to make up just a French bread loaf just to make it easy. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to round it up, put it in a ball for our starting position. We'll take our paper that we're going to end with, bake it on. We'll just set it over here on the table. Okay, and now we're going to need to, trap this so it holds the heat and the moisture on the dough. There's lots of ways to do it, but here's the way I do it. Come over here, Carol. I'm going to start cleaning up my mess, and I'm going to use the hot water that's going to be created for trying to rinse off my dish to heat up this metal bowl. And that heat from the metal bowl will then help me to grow my dough, rise my dough. So it works really good. So I'm just getting all my sticky stuff off here. All right. Looks like I got most of it. Just trying to make sure I get it clean. Not clean, but just clean, but heated up too. I want to heat it up with the water. All right, let's get a towel. We can dry this off. And we want to get most of the moisture off the inside, and that's it. So now we're going to take this, and we're going to set it on here. And we're going to set our timer for 1 hour, and we'll come back and we'll finish it. We'll go to the next step.